I have the most potential to put my foot in my mouth. So I'm really hoping that I get my point across very clearly when I speak about this show. What's good, ladies and gentlemen? Today I'm going to sit here and talk with you about the show Them that has premiered and dropped on Amazon. I am only one episode in, but there's some issues and some things I would like to address here on film before I get into my future videos that I'm going to do regarding that series. So subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Definitely, if you want to see more coverage of the show Them and hear about it from my perspective or the perspective of some of the people I'll be bringing in to discuss it, please subscribe and be around so you can get those videos. But here I'm in a place where I think I have the most potential to put my foot in my mouth. So I'm really hoping that I get my point across very clearly when I speak about this show. So the issue with the show is this: I've heard quite a landslide of commentary about black trauma and Hollywood taking black trauma and selling it back to them. And I heard this stuff about the Jordan Peele films with Us and Get Out. You hear this stuff about what was it, Lovecraft Country, that came out over the last year with HBO Max, and that's one angle. But I feel like those shows were so detached from reality, especially Lovecraft Country. It was so magical and mystical, and so much stuff going on in those shows that the black trauma was there. We don't want to say it was like sidelined. It was definitely there. But it just didn't feel like the heart of the show. With Them, the black trauma angle is definitely the heart of the show. And I want to say that I'm not 100% mad at that. So this is my video kind of explaining why I'm not 100% upset about the selling and repackaging of black trauma. So it's noteworthy to mention here because all the directors of all the episodes in this show, 10 episodes, are all white. Now that might be an issue if it was a totally white produced show, but I looked into the creators. The producers of the show are Lena Waithe and Little Marvin, and I looked into these guys a little bit, and in looking into them I find that Little Marvin views himself as a deconstructionist when it comes to the production of the show. I know he wrote a couple of the episodes, specifically the first one, which is the one that I saw so far. And the reason why I'm not all the way mad about black trauma being exposed or turned for a profit here is that with this situation in this show, it's showing racism in a horrific way. Like, it's taking things that people may not have thought possible in real life, but were very common in real life, and presenting them to you in a horror genre. And I think that actually does the events justice, if I'm making sense. To help me illustrate my point here, I pull in a story from Chris Rock. So here's a clip of Chris Rock from November of 2020. He did an interview, and this story, I believe parts of this story has circulated before, but this one gives you a good picture of what I mean. So listen to Chris Rock and come back.
Have you ever talked about why your family moved up from South Carolina? Is that like like legal?
Allegedly, I don't know. Here's the is like, I hate all civil rights movies.
What?
Don't get me wrong. I applaud the effort,
Right.
and they should exist. The problem is they only show the back of the bus and the lunch counter. They actually make racism look very like fixable.
Right.
And they don't really get into how dysfunctional the relationships were. And like in the 40s and 50s, like white men would just walk in your house and take your food. Like
What?
Yeah. They would just come into your house. They wouldn't knock.
what do you think would happen during the Depression when people are hungry?
Oh,
and
no,
white
like,
people
just
are
go.
hungry. And like, oh, there's black people cooking on that side of town. What do you think would happen? They would walk in your house and take your...
Predator-prey relationship.
It's a predator-prey relationship. What do you think white guys, what you think when it was time to rape, they were raping white women? No, they would go and rape the women they could actually rape without going to jail for. Okay? Or sexual assault, just like, guys and all that, all that so much more, you know, racism and Jim Crow is so much dirtier than any movie ever shows.
It's insidious. It's in every single act
and
interaction.
Just the amount of rules that existed. I mean, you were probably going to get to this at some point. Like, I always tell the story of my mother used to get her teeth taken out at the vet.
Yeah.
Because you weren't allowed to go to the dentist. Like no movie shows you that.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, well, if we give them some eggs, they'll be fine.
Yeah, we just gotta not.
Why are these black people complaining?
The seating. Once we get the seating thing squared away.
So the thought that black people had to use animal doctors to operate in their mouths because they were black and black people couldn't go to the dentist. Or the other part that he mentioned about the depression and having white people just come into your home and take things from you, and there was no one you could go to for any kind of relief from that situation. To me, is a horrific thing. Now, granted, I grew up in a time period where if racism was done to me, we could hit them with, what you trying to get into. We could do them something. You know what I mean? It wasn't like anyone terrorized me, because we could whip them from the early 90s up until the current day. But the idea that back in those days, in the early 1920s, late 1800s, really from slavery up until very recent times, they had to, black people had to just accept it and take it, and some of that stuff is terrifying, and it's being presented here in a terrifying way, almost doing it justice. Nothing can actually make things as realistic as they actually were, but to present them from a place of horror seems about right. Knowing that they were so powerless, and I'm sure as we get into more episodes, if you watched it already, you might know, but I'm sure if you get into more episodes, the feeling of powerlessness will show itself in the black people that the show centers around. I did see a pieces, I kind of stopped, but I'd see a part of episode 2 with the police in their home, and it's like when the police left, he breathed a sigh of relief, because you feel that tension knowing that there's no one I can call, there's no help coming, I am at these people's whim, which is a horrible, horrible thought. So yeah, I do believe that, people who are upset and mad, you're absolutely right to be upset and mad, because this is exactly what it looks like. Black trauma taken, repackaged, and sold. But at the same time, I feel like in this specific instance, it's probably very well done because of the angle that is presented in, if that makes any sense. I really hope that I'm not putting my foot in my mouth with this video, but I just feel like traumatic stuff should be traumatic, and what African Americans experience in this country over the course of our long history was horrific and traumatic, and now it's being presented on screen as a horror, and as a part of a horror genre. Again, I hope I'm not losing people with my thoughts here, but those are my thoughts about the show. I will continue to watch it as long as I can take it, you know what I mean? And I do have a few friends who are big, huge horror fans, and I want to sit with them and talk with them, because I'm certain that from my perspective, and seeing and knowing about the outcry about black trauma, and knowing them, they probably have no idea about that angle, and I really want to see if they pick up on anything, and if they do, how do they feel about it? Even if they don't pick up on it, then let me present it to them and see, how they feel about it, looking back, so stick around and subscribe for those discussions. I hope that I made my point clear that, it is black trauma being sold, but kind of right in this instance. It's weird that they, the producers, two black people, writer for a large portion of it, black writer, chose all white directors. I do find that to be strange, but not crazy, I guess. You could do what you want. You're the producer, you're making the show, so I really don't have any other thoughts besides that. Hope you guys enjoyed my take. Let me know in the comments if you disagree or how you feel. Enjoy yourself. Guard your heart. Come on back.